Yes, come in.
Good morning, Sean. We came as quickly as we could.
I guess this has something to do with our body. Did you dig something up on him?
Yeah, we did. The coroner worked on the remains most of the night. Give me a preliminary report and an identification.
An identification?
Mm-hmm. Last night I pulled the investigation file of the Ward case out of the basement. And even though the police department closed the case, one of the detectives, Detective Green, pursued it on his own time. Then he retired, but thanks to his perseverance and curiosity, we have dental records.
Which show what?
That the body buried in your backyard is that of Bradley Ward.
Oh, no. Poor Mamie.
You mean he's been out there pushing up daisies all this time?
Yep, in his mother's own backyard.
Have you told her this?
No, not yet. I wanted to talk to you first since you have a personal relationship with her.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Gunshot wound?
Yeah, one gunshot wound in the skull, right above the right eye. Do either one of you have anything at all on this? I mean, any thoughts?
Sean, the stiff's been cold for 20 years. What would we know about it? Didn't this Green have anything useful in the file?
Yeah, he did. He felt that the investigation was closed prematurely, and I tend to agree with him, but I'll tell you something. He really didn't come up with any more information. This file has more questions in it than answers.
What questions?
All right, for example, did Bradley Ward have any enemies? And if he did, were they the kind of people who would have killed him? Now, Laura, I'm going to have to talk to Mrs. Ward. And I was hoping that you would clue me in on her first. I mean, what did she tell you about her son?
Well, I know that he lived in what is now our house, and I know that Mamie was still living there at the time of his disappearance. He was a minister. He was the pastor of Mount Hebron Church.
And he was the first black state assemblyman from this area.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what was her version of his disappearance then?
You know, I don't want to be difficult, Sean, but I think that'd probably be best if you just heard it from her.
You're right, but every little bit helps me, huh?
Well, I know that she adored her son. Let's see. She founded the Bradley Ward House in his honor as a means of continuing the good works that he was doing for the community, and her pride in her son's accomplishments is one of the things that keeps her going.
This is going to be very hard on her, Sean. Please take it easy.
Luke, I understand all that. I still have to tell her, excuse me.
Well, please let us go with you then. This is going to be hard enough for her to hear. Don't make her hear it from a stranger.
You're right, Laura, and I'm sure that your presence there is going to make her feel a little more comfortable, and hopefully she'll fill in the blanks for us. So, shall we go?
I need this. Here.
Laura, Luke, how you doing this fine morning? Hi, baby.
Mrs. Ward, Commissioner Donnelly, Port Charles Police.
How do you do, Commissioner?
Nice meeting you, Mrs. Ward.
Oh, why don't y'all come on in? It's a little too early for lunch, but may I offer you some tea or something?
No, thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Laura, Luke?
No, thank you.
Mary May, Commissioner Donnelly is here on official business.
I'm sorry to barge in like this, Mrs. Ward, but certain discoveries have been made that you should be made aware of.
Sit down. Remember I told you that we were planting a garden? Well, we got that lilac bush, and we were putting it in.
Well, you said you might, and I'm glad you did it.
Yes, we planted it. We were going to plant it yesterday. I was digging the hole about 4 or 5 feet deep, and well, we discovered a body. So we called the police, and last night, Commissioner Donnelly looked up the file on your son's disappearance.
The file contained dental records that positively identified the body buried in the Spencer's backyard as that of Bradley Ward. very sorry, Mrs. Ward.
There's more. You okay? I hate to have to tell you this, but, there was also serious damage to the skull.
It was a gunshot wound, Mary Mae.
Mrs. Ward, I'm afraid, that in all probability, your son was murdered. All the files will be reviewed, and I'm going to get to the bottom of why this case was closed so prematurely. But in the meantime, I would appreciate very much if you could tell me everything you know about your son's disappearance, or how his body ended up being buried in the backyard of your house.
Bradley was a mover and a shaker, and he rattled a lot of cages. He had a vision of what the world ought to be, and there were people he ran up against who had a different vision. Last time I saw him, it was a warm, rainy June night, and he sat outside in the swing on the porch, and he told me about the troubles he was having with the powers that be in Fort Charles. And when we were done, he walked down the steps into the rain. I never saw him again.
Then you have no idea how his body came to be buried in your backyard?
No.
Or any idea who would have done this to it?
No.
In regards to the troubles he was having, did your son have many enemies?
Political enemies. His friends loved him.
I see. I understand that you had a rose garden in the backyard. Now, if his body was buried there, wouldn't you have noticed that the ground had been dug up?
Well, I recall that year I did a great deal of planting, and the entire backyard was turned over and turned over again, and I wouldn't have thought twice about freshly turned earth.
And, you can't imagine what happened to your son, huh?
I preferred then, and I prefer now, not to speculate. This community was very volatile in those days, Commissioner, and I did everything I could to limit my speculation that Bradley's disappearance was the result of a hateful act, because we didn't know that. And people tend to respond with hatred, with more hatred, and that was no way to remember Bradley Ward.
I can appreciate all that, Mrs. Ward, but in light of everything that we've learned so far, I'm afraid I'm going to have to reopen the case.
Of course, that's your job.
I just hope that it's some consolation to you to find out what really happened to your son. And I promise you that all of my efforts will be focused to do just that.
You understand that what I'm most concerned with right now is making arrangements for a proper burial of my son.
Yes, of course. As soon as the coroner finishes his examination of the remains, the body will be turned over to the family. I'm afraid I'm going to have to get back to my office. I want to extend my deepest sympathies to you and your family, Mrs. Ward. I'll be in touch.
Thank you, and if there's anything I can do to help you with your investigation, I will be very happy to do so.
I appreciate that very much. I'll be in touch, as I say. I'll find my way out.
We'll do whatever we can to help.
I'm sorry, Mimi. I'm really sorry.